And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine for weapons we make here in the United States, we give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Facts.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is treating the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot allow...
Trump's all smiling. I mean, that's an important thing, bro.
We're telling people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas. Greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for what bringing certain weapons and most populistic centers.
Let's go back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have the ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion,
Hello.
maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money.
They're talking about NATO right now.
He didn't do that. He's getting all,
I guess I can flip the camera for a minute. I can't do it too long. What's up, man? Sorry, I can't do it too long because I'll get in trouble for copyright. So they're talking about NATO right now.
You got to ask them, as far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants
Yeah, it won't let me,
wants to keep going.
I can hold it up for a minute. They're talking about Israel and Palestine and NATO, and then they're talking about Ukraine as well.
But they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is the guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO.
Look at that face. Look at that.
Our strength lies in our alliances as well.
Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in.
In Europe, a major war in Europe. What happens?
I'm non-sponsored. There's no ads running on my stuff. This is me and my opinion.
Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world.
He's just over there making faces. What are you talking about? What are you doing, dude?
Because I understand that
what are you doing, man?
This dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been contained just to Europe.
Hello.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that...
Trump said that he could stop the war in Ukraine before he became president. That makes me beg the question of how.
Because if you
I'm
own
doing
property
well. I'm
about
just
the
sitting
same
here
size
watching
as
the
your
American
country,
debate.
their economy is about the
So
same
far,
size
it's
as the United
under
States.
control. It's
And
not
they
too
will rent
crazy.
no
Everyone's
cars,
answering the
They don't
questions.
want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars,
I would
their
have to
food, their
disagree.
everything,
Honestly,
their
Trump
agriculture.
hasn't
I
really
changed
put
that.
forth any much
But the only
effort.
thing
He's
I
kind of
changed
drooling
in
over
one
here,
day,
man.
and the only reason that he can play
He's
games
pointing the
with
finger, but
NATO
he's been
is
bailing on the
because I got them
questions,
to put up
honestly.
hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not
And
going to
honestly,
support
he's been
NATO if
live
you don't
fact
pay.
checked, and he's been
He
fact
asked me
checked
that
live
question.
twice
Would
so
you go
far.
this against Russia?
At minute 9
At a
and
very
minute
secret
15.
meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time.
15,
And they
16,
said, no,
somewhere
you
around
don't
there. I can
pay.
backtrack and
I
look.
won't do that. And you know what happened?
Shoot
Billions
that
and
guy.
billions of dollars were flowing in the next day and the next month.
I'm surprised it's not
Now
kicked
we're in
me
the
off
same
yet.
position. We're paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021.
Okay,
After
here's
you
the question,
rallied your
January
supporters
6th.
that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Why do they
Thanks for
really
watching,
believe that?
folks.
And let me tell you about January 6th.
They're talking about January
On
6th.
January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we
They're
had
talking
lowest
about
taxes
the
ever.
event on
We had the
January
lowest
6th. They're not
regulations
talking
ever.
about the economy,
On
bro.
January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were
Still respected.
And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at.
We're not laughed
a
at.
bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible.
I would have to
including
disagree.
weaponization,
Only thing
which
I
I'm
can really
sure some
complain about
people
right
are
now is
talking
rent,
about,
bro.
where he
Fucking
was saying
rent,
his
dude.
political opponent
And it's
was
because I live in an
terrorist.
unincorporated zone, and these
You have 80
corporate
seconds left, my
corporate
question
landlords can
was,
do whatever they
what
want.
do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that
Come on
you'll
up,
do it
Tinkerbell.
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said
She's saying hello.
peacefully and patriotically.
Hello.
And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who is a documentary filmmaker, that they say, but she's saying,
Oh, he's
no,
flipping
it's
him off.
my
He's
responsibility.
flipping him off. He just flipped him
I'm
off.
responsible for this.
Oh, he just flipped him off.
10,000
Classic.
soldiers or National
Classic.
Guard.
Biden just
And
flipped
she
him
turned
off.
him down. And the mayor, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down. The mayor of D.C. They turned
Forgive
it
my
down.
mess,
I
bro.
offered 10,000 because I could see. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're
Come
going
on.
to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her, and she now admits
That's Tinkerbell.
that she turned it
It was
down.
my grandpa's.
It was the same
When he
day
passed
she
away,
was
he gave it to me.
You can't be very happy with the daughter.
And I've had her ever since. She's fabulous.
She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look,
You heard that. Trump said he took full responsibility for January 6th.
I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours.
So I had to turn it around for a
3
second.
hours watching
I get
Biden.
I'm able to stream the debate as long as I don't stream it longer than 4 minutes per
to do something.
turnaround or whatever. So it's enough time for me to commentary and show Tinkerbell.
Patriots and a great patron of America.
Yeah,
In fact, he
all is
says
right.
he'll not forgive them for what they've done.
Love my pops. He was a military
He
veteran,
says he wants to commute their sentences.
deep Southern.
And saying that, you know, he went to every single court in the nation.
Passed away peacefully, and I drove all the way to North Carolina and picked up Tinkerbell. Had her ever
They
since.
said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done.
Okay, I can turn it back around now.
And these people should be in jail, and they should be winter.
Fact. You know, fun fact about January 6th he wants to talk about. Did you know the windows that got broken out were the original windows of the Capitol that originally got burnt down during the British Inquisition?
What they've done to
Those
some
got
people
destroyed.
that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately.
Hello.
What he said about This whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing.
They're talking about January 6th
The
specifically.
Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans.
I don't know. He's fumbling right now, man. He just said he took full responsibility for January 6th. Biden said they should be in jail, and now he's calling them patriots.
Because they found out we were right.
We'll see, man. He's kind of fumbling right now, bro.
And destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that,
I wanted to stream this on like a full screen, but I guess it wasn't gonna let us live screen this, so I'm just doing it the old-fashioned way.
And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up on Capitol Hill, and all those people, every one of those who were convicted.
They're talking about January 6th.
The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows.
Thanks for talking about those windows, man. Yeah, fun fact, those were the original windows that from that original Capitol shits that got burnt down there in the British. Those British fucks. Way back when. Hey, fact, beauty pageant, bro. Beauty pageant, man. Look, here, I tell you what, let's get a close up. Let's see how hard they work for their beauty. Let's see, where is it? There it is. Look at that line right.
What are you gonna do?
Okay, now let's do him.
I'm gonna,
Beauty pageant. Beauty
minute
pageant.
President
I'm
Trump
kidding.
for a follow-up question.
Best comment.
After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about.
Well, I appreciate you hanging out on my page, man.
Going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I
Good
said
question.
my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My
We're not
retribution is
failing.
going to be success.
Shit's high, but
when
we're
he
not
talks about
failing.
A convicted felon. His son is a convicted felon.
His son's not running for president.
His son is convicted. Going to be convicted probably numerous other times.
So lock him up. I don't care.
But his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things.
All
But
right.
he could be a convicted
Here,
felon
actually,
as
I'll
soon
tell you
as
what.
he
I'll
gets
take
out
my
of
headset off.
jail. With all of the things
There we
that he's
go.
done.
It'll
He's
just
done
be a little
all
harder
the
to hear me,
things,
but you can hear
all
this
of the
better.
death cause at the border.
Better?
Telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion, you could change the prosecutor, otherwise you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man,
Bet.
you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
Let's let him respond.
idea
Let's hear it.
That I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's
Yeah, I'll
simply
smoke a
wrong.
blunt.
No president's ever spoken like that before.
I don't condone minor smoking, though, so I'm going to go ahead and say it for the stream. I forgot to say it when I started.
The crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night
There it is.
while
Hit
your
him.
wife was pregnant? I mean,
He's going to hit you. He's going to hit your son and hit him, bro.
you're the
Hit him
Morgan
back.
Alley cat.
Sleepy Joe his ass.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started
That's a clip.
and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the
Need
Manhattan
that as a
DA's office to
ringtone. I
start
didn't
that
have sex
case.
with a porn
That
star.
case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in
My
more
poll
money in the
numbers.
last 2 weeks
Y'all are at
than we've
50-50,
ever
man.
taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds
stuff
of
away from the
millions
speaker,
of dollars
maybe
came
a little
pouring in
louder.
because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
But you said you were going to do
President
that
Biden,
too.
you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy.
Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know
Okay, so
about
this
what
is
he's
talking
done.
to the Trump
And
people.
there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming
The
on.
question is, how do you feel about people that are voting for Trump?
Issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run
Nah.
in the first place after my son died, I decided
We lost
to
that
run
shit in the
because of
90s,
that.
man.
I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas, torches, and
Babe, so the
continuing
question
same
is
aesthetic
asking,
file. They sang
how does
and
Biden feel
went
about
back in
Trump
Germany.
supporters and
I
their
went to- and the young
the
woman that
democracy?
spoke to
I
the
bet you they're going to talk about,
and
oh, it's a
they asked him, they
constitutional
said,
republic.
What do you think of those people? The people who, the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the one who said, I think there's fine people on both sides. What American president
Tinkerbell.
would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what
Act, because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You
Fun
know it,
fact,
and I
ever
know
since
this is ridiculous. We
Charlottesville,
have
there's
debate.
been a
We're trying to
consistent
justify
police
his
presence posted
presidency.
up at the
His
Capitol
presidency
ever
is,
since.
without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate.
Bro, you're a
He made
felon.
up
How
the
can you
Charlottesville
sit
story.
here and
And
say
you'll see
the
it's
worst
debunked
president?
all
You're
over
a
the
felon,
place.
dog.
Every anchor has, every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that. And he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
and debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time.
Fact.
The idea that
It did
somehow
happen.
That's the only reason I ran. I ran because I worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches.
That shit wasn't cool, man. Ever since that shit happened in Charlottesville, I promise you, there's been a police car that sits in downtown Charlottesville right outside the courthouse ever since.
We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows.
There was no reason that the Ku Klux Klan in full regalia should have been allowed to march like
40
that.
of his 44 top cabinet
Also, fun
officers
fact, in
refused
Tennessee,
to
my
post
state,
stuff.
the Ku Klux Klan is marked as a terrorist organization.
Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential
All right, so
debate.
they're doing their midway break. I think they're at, let's see what minute is this? It's been 50 minutes of 90 minute, I think they said. So, all right, so here's some commentary, bro. Here's some of my commentary. I'll give you some commentary. So, a couple big questions were asked here. Roe v. Wade. Trump started bragging on it, and Biden said if he's reelected, he's going to. I don't like ads, so I'm gonna turn this down, and I don't feel like shifting around the channels. So they're talking about Roe v. Wade. Trump said that he is against Roe v. Wade, and he was bragging about having it. Biden said he's gonna do his best to reinstate it, Roe v. Wade. So that's gonna be interesting. They started talking about Charlottesville. Oh, it's on an ad. They're on their midway break. It's gonna be on a break for like probably 5 minutes. But then Trump took full responsibility of January 6th, so that's a big deal. They talked directly about January 6th and its events, and he said he takes full responsibility of it. So that's actually a pretty big deal. They quoted him on it, and he went ahead and said he took full responsibility. So that's a very big deal. Biden said that they belong in jail if you storm the Capitol, broken those windows. Fun fact about those windows no one really talks about, just because I like architecture. Those windows were the original windows that were in the Capitol during the British invasion, and so those windows got destroyed. Very saddening. But continuing past that, they got to talking about the shit that happened in Portland. You know, remember the whole and it was very touched on. They didn't really even talk about it too much, but those riots. What was it called? What was that? Remember that Portland thing? What was it? What was its name? The autonomy zone, something like that. I don't know. Something about the autonomy zone. I kind of missed that part. I had to turn off my Twitch. They hit me with a copyright. I guess. I wasn't allowed to stream that part of it, so I had to. And then my mom's called. That was funny. My mom's is very pro-Republican. I understand why. Deep South. She's from the deep-rooted South. I'm from Middle Tennessee, but I'm just not. I don't appreciate what the Republicans are doing. So that said, I'm over here wondering if they're going to talk about how Kennedy is still pulling, like, what is it, like 20%? They said roughly like 8-9%. Doesn't sound like much, but that's actually quite a big pool. So I'm betting that at some point in this next 30 minutes, they're going to ask about Kennedy somewhere in this. I'm curious about that. But then they got to chatting about the border. That was funny back and forth, and I'm glad I recorded part of it because that was a couple funny clips. But then they kept getting muted. But overall, it's been a debate. I mean, it hasn't really been like a bunch of punch fists. They've both been kind of old. I mean, not gonna lie, they're both wearing a lot of makeup. This dude, let me read back on this. He said, "Worst beauty pageant ever." That was a fact. It was literally like, if you look close, they're both wearing so much makeup. It's unreal. There was this thing by the Lincoln Project, and the Lincoln Project being normally pro-Republican. Just prior to this, it was like 30 minutes prior to it, and they said the best way for Republicans to win is to vote against Republicans. So that's gonna be interesting. I'm wondering if they're gonna bring up the fact that Republicans right now, like, there's like I said, good 20% of them are leaning towards Kennedy, and if 20% of Democrats lean towards Kennedy as well, I mean, we're talking like a possibility in 2 months of like that independent candidate. I don't think they're gonna do much, but I wonder if they're gonna talk about 2028 and then possibly even the fact that 2032 is a very important election as well, and this election is going to outline that. They're about to restart. It's like a little 10-second countdown. There it goes.
To a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
She wants
We've
attention.
made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there are more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of
We're talking about the Black folk.
unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long time.
I can tell you I grew up in a Black community and they are not voting for Trump.
We're trying to find housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that
Right?
exists
Tinkerbell for
among
president.
these corporate operations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
Tinkerbell has more fans than the presidential race.
The impact on
Secretly, they're tuning in to see Tinkerbell. Is that right? Y'all are really here to see her? She's the real person of the show.
Difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black child care costs. I cut them in half. We gotta make sure we provide for child care costs. We gotta make sure, because when you provide that child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people come in.
I'm interested to see what Trump has to say about the Black vote, because I grew up in HUD housing, and under Trump they made it damn near impossible to get into Section 8. Under Biden, it's been a nice, like, straightforward process. My mom still lives in Section 8, so does my brother.
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example,
I appreciate that.
The idea that any Black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home, so they can get started. I made sure.
You're talking about
all those Black families
a $10,000 tax credit for first-time Black homeowners.
Ballooning, that if they were in grandkids and nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years.
I'm trying to keep the camera moving so I don't get hit with
forgiven after 10 years. Billions of
whatever the hell it's called.
And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation.
No,
He's blaming inflation.
No, global.
And he's right, it's been very
7
good.
million people
He
died,
caused the
dude.
inflation, and it's killing Black
240,000
families,
businesses
Hispanics,
closed.
everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled.
Food is owned by 4 different corporations.
They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave
He
him
also cut the
a
taxes
country
on
with
corporations.
essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his
He's just
big
listening.
kill on the black people is
Look
the
at this.
millions of people that he's allowed to come in through
His
the
cheeks
border.
are puckered up. He's about to hit him.
And it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you.
You
President
said that
Biden?
4 years ago.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 50% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy.
That's a fact.
That's why there was no inflation.
That is a fact.
There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in vulnerable communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000
I support Biden because when I
person
lost
in
my
the family.
job,
Get
he
rid
sent me a
of
personal
healthcare.
email that he
This guy
supports
wants to
unions.
eliminate that. They've tried 50 times.
When our
He
union
wants
got
to get rid of the
busted in
ACA
20,
again. And they're gonna try again.
2021,
We found
2022,
ourselves in a position
he
where
sent me a
the
personal
idea
letter about it.
that we're not
Me
doing it,
and
I put
19
more-
others.
We put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot
This
going
fella
on.
needs to learn how to
And
smile.
inflation, he caused it by his tremendous amount.
Let's see if I can get a screenshot of that. We need to smile.
Thank you.
Smile.
Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis.
I don't know why it's enough.
2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump
say
you
climate
vowed to
change
end
isn't
your
real.
opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Let me just go
This is
back
what I
to
care
what
about.
he
No,
said
don't go
about
back. We're talking about the
police.
environment, dog.
How close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is
Derailing.
supporting Donald J. Trump.
No, we're
Almost
not talking
every
about police. We're
group.
talking about the environment,
And what
man.
he's done to
They
the
say
black
climate change isn't
population
real.
is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years
She
he
asked him
called
about the
super
environment,
predators
he's talking about
in the
police.
1990s. We can't forget that. Super Predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black
Notate
colleges and
everyone here that
universities,
he's talking
where I
about
funded them and got them all
police
funded,
when they're
and the
directly asking him about the
opportunity zones
environment.
with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina.
Look at him, he's
Came
mad.
forward with the idea.
He's
It was
like,
a great
dog,
idea. It's one of the most
you being
successful
for real? You're pretty much handing him the,
ever in the country. Opportunity
you're
zones.
handing him
And the biggest
this item
beneficiary
here,
are
bro.
blacks. And
He's about
that's
to chew
why
you up when you talk
we
about the
have
environment.
best numbers with them in maybe ever, this thing ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But when
Now he's
you
talking
see
about
these
black people and
millions of people
Hispanics. Again,
pouring into our
remind you, the
country, and they're
question
gonna take the
is
jobs,
about
and
the
it's already
environment.
started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You 38 seconds left.
We had H2O, we had the best numbers ever, and we were using all
Oh, he's
forms
shaking
of
his head.
energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top
said he has the best
environmental
environmental numbers
gave me that
ever. I
statistic
don't know
just
if I can
before
believe
walked
that.
on the stage, actually.
Fun fact, he got rid of the best, or the last American fishery in Alaska
Today
for
what
oil.
you said is true.
He sold off a good quarter of the national forest in southern Colorado.
In history. We found ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $50 million for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. we're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment.
Oh, there it is. He
The
cussed
Paris
first cuss
Peace
word of the
I immediately
debate.
joined it, because if we
He said he
really
didn't do a
reach
damn thing for the
1.5 degrees
environment.
Celsius, and then he went, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
Fact.
The Paris
He said he didn't do a
Accord was gonna
damn
cost
thing
us $1
about it,
trillion,
bro.
And China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treated us horribly. We were
Just
the
like you
only ones
wasted
who was
money on the
costing us
border.
money. Nobody else was paying into it, and it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social
So he's
Security.
saying 300,000
He is destroying
migrants
Social Security,
are
Medicare,
affecting
Medicaid.
how many billion of Americans? How many we have in our country? 1.5 billion or some shit like that?
We, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to, the United States can't get us under control? One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making
For carbon, we are really a large producer.
By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps where thousands of young people will learn how
Yeah, for real,
to
build another wall.
Peace Corps, and we're going to.
He ran on that in 2016 and he only built like 50 miles and it all has fallen over and rusted because he sold out for fucking Chinese parts.
He has the biggest heart up here, and he's really concerned about pollution.
Doesn't want
and
to talk about
climate.
how many people come through Canada. Tinker, you want attention? Come here. You can have all the attention in the world. Come here, baby girl.
One company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35 for one. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security?
Yeah, I think he
solid?
decided to stop because he was out of time.
Pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that,
Guys, it's crazy windy. I gotta bring my plants. Come here, little sprouts. Politics can wait.
So no one after,
Sorry.
the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000
Go on up, little sunflower.
begin to make the world, begin to pay their fair share.
Sorry. Gotta make sure my babies.
We have a guaranteed program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left, President.
Come here, tomatoes.
The biggest thing is we defeat this man.
Sorry.
Because he wants to get rid of Social Security.
I'll show you
He
what.
thinks there's money to cut Social Security. There's money to cut Social Security and Medicaid both times. And that's what-
That is true. He did want to cut Social Security and Medicaid.
The House Republican caucus that he supports.
Oh no, this little guy's neck.
Cut it.
It's okay. Go ahead,
The
cucumber.
idea that we
You
don't
shall
need
keep
to
growing.
protect seniors is ridiculous.
Sorry, you're seeing my face up and close.
By the way,
You're here for the president and you're seeing me playing with my plants.
Today than ever before. And as I said, we're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they in fact are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, on a
Plants are
situation
secure,
where we
by
talk
the
about
way,
education
but they're all
black
nice
communities,
and
I've
happy
raised
chilling.
the amount of money.
Crazy
for
windy
programs,
outside.
another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 towards the tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen
8
anybody
years
lie
isn't
like
all your
this
life,
guy.
bud.
He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation.
I believe
the
he's
losers and
deflecting.
sucker story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens.
Guest request.
What they're
Yeah, I'll
doing to
accept
the
guests
VA,
after
to our
the
veterans is unbelievable. Our veterans are living on the
after-
street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
anger, dude. Every time I see a red hat, I want to snatch
Veterans
it.
are not being taken care of. I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he said he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two,
Good,
the
shots
idea
fired.
that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country.
I need that on
taking
a
our
shirt.
jobs.
Millions
There's
and
a reason
millions.
why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidents.
There's your by the way, bro.
Hit him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you
The
so
bi-
much. Let's
the
turn to cost of
BTW was-
childcare,
he was
which
the
many
worst
American
president in
families
history.
struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and
Fuck
President
Trump.
Biden
Excuse my
have
French.
tried to
You
address
too.
this issue. But the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
And just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people.
Facts. Free
He
Palestine.
never
I
fired
would
people.
defund the
I've never
entire
seen him
war.
fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that Afghan.
They're deflecting about
Afghanistan,
the
horror show.
military
Most
general that
embarrassing
got
moment in
fired
the history
because
of
he
our country.
said Trump
He
said
didn't fire. Did you fire
that
anybody? Did you fire
talking
anybody
about
that's
dead
on the
troops,
border, that's allowed
and
us on the worst
the
border in
general
history of the
told,
world? Did anybody
yeah,
get
exactly, you're
fired
fired.
for allowing
He
18
fired
million
him, and
people?
then now
Many
he's
from
saying that it
prisons,
didn't matter.
Many from mental
He's
institutions. Did
trying
you
to
fire
deflect
anybody
that.
allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I
Tell
sit
it the
up
Low
here
and
and
Burbridge
waste a lot of time on this
district
debate.
in
They
Colorado,
shouldn't be
where all
debate.
those towns are
He's the
dying.
worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our
There-
country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tougher.
He says that every chance he
came
can,
out
he's
with
the worst president.
A nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit,
Come on.
like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance,
A chance at
of
what?
coming out of this rut. We
We're not in a
probably
rut,
don't have
dog.
a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He's the worst
What?
in history.
That's
by
what
far.
I'm trying to figure out. What will happen to our country,
We're the
bro?
most admired country in the world. We're
You
the
keep saying
United
our
States of
country
America.
is gonna
There's
die.
nothing
Let's
more
just
than
fuck around and find
We're
out.
the finest military in the history of the world. The finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one.
My
Number
greatest
two, the
grandfather
idea
came
that
over
we're
here
talking
from
about
Germany
worst
after
presidents.
being
I wasn't joking.
in the
Look it up
Holocaust
online.
and signed up for the military.
59 or 58, don't know the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who was the worst president in American history one to best to worst. They said he was the worst in all.
These camera angles are like
American
wop,
history.
wop, wop,
That's a
wop,
fact.
wop.
That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care. He did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women
Facts.
and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage.
There's no reason we should have two 70-year-olds up here.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that do.
Mind you, they're talking about children in health care
So bad.
and child education, and he has not answered. He has said exactly what he's going to do. He has not
If I'm
answered.
given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's
Think.
ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times.
That's
He
not
wants to
true.
raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I grow up and I see politicians
When I
talking
made
about cutting taxes.
40,000,
When we
my
cut
taxes went
as
up.
I said,
When I made
we did more
100,000, my
business.
taxes
Apple and
went
all these
down. So
companies, they were bringing money back into our country.
laugh
The
at the
worst
devil.
president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President
Well,
Biden?
this dude
Look,
refuses
fact
to
of the
smile.
matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He's increased.
Smile,
he will
man.
increase
You're on
the,
TV.
taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. And this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're importing. Number two,
Tariffs
he's in a
would be a
situation
terrible
where
idea.
he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been
I gotta flip
devastated.
it for a minute.
Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history.
Facts.
Number
Throw some shots at
Number
him.
two, you have not, in fact, made.
He's
any
looking right at him. He ain't even
any
looking at the camera. He's looking right at his
progress
eyes.
With China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We are the
President
highest.
Biden.
We lost
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term. The
Oh,
opioid
man.
crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone
Thank you.
up.
Let's talk
Under
about
your
the
term,
fucking
it is
drugs,
up. Under
man.
your term, it has gone up. Former President
I'm from
Trump,
Tennessee.
despite the
That
efforts
fucking
both of you
fentanyl
have
is
made,
killing everybody,
more than
bro.
100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year. Primarily from
The Republican
fentanyl
governor
and
of
opioids.
Tennessee
What
says
do you
it's
do to
not
help
real, man.
Americans right now
They're talking
in the
about
throes
drugs
of
now.
addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up,
No, talk about drugs.
we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit.
Tell
with
that to
China.
Bush and his 20-year-long war. Now answer the
China. He's
question
a
about
China
drugs,
candidate.
man.
He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs.
Notice he's not
that comes from
answering the
China.
question about the
He
drug
never took them
epidemic
away.
in our
He can't
country.
because it's too much money. It's tremendous.
This has
And we saved
directly
our steel
affected
industries, and
many of my
there's more to
family
come.
members, including
He
my
hasn't done that.
sister's
He
father.
hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst.
Notice
the worst
he's
situation
still
with
not
China.
answering the
China's
question.
gonna own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along.
We're not,
We
man.
had 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had.
Bro,
before.
I've seen this shit in this shit since I was a
And
child.
then we had to get tough, and it was the drugs pouring across the border.
No, they're not. They're coming from America,
started to
dude.
increase. We got great
They're coming
equipment.
from
We work
American
a certain
companies,
dog. It's
man.
the most incredible thing that you've
They're not
ever
coming
seen, the
from
way they
China.
get
They're
started.
coming from
We did a
literally
lot, and
America.
we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along.
We're the biggest
numbers
supplier
you
of
see the
fentanyl to
numbers
the
now.
world.
It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border. The worst thing I've
It's
ever
not just
seen.
the border, man.
And
It's
numbers
here.
that nobody's ever
It's
seen
here,
ever hit
man.
because the border's so bad.
You
But
can
the
literally
number
make
of
meth
drugs
at your
coming
home
across
from
our
shit
border
you get
now
at
is
Ace
the
Hardware,
largest
bro.
we've ever had
Like,
by far.
President Trump, thank
fuck.
you. President Biden.
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And
Yeah,
I
you
wanted
got
to
it,
make sure
man.
we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it
But
costs a lot of money.
they don't want
That's
to talk
why we
about
still
how
get together. It's
we
bipartisan
create
deal.
this shit in
No fentanyl
America
machines,
through the pharmaceutical companies that have no
more
regulation.
numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's fentanyl, and Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to
They're
do.
talking about drugs. He said he wants to crack down on it. He said that's not here.
President Trump, and again, the question is about
Exactly, man. The
Americans
companies are
who
running this,
right
dude.
now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Put the patches on them like NASCAR.
He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release.
But you got to think about it this, man. If I'm an immigrant and I am so poor that I cannot breathe, and my last thing is to make sure my child is fed, and basically it's life or death. That's the situation most of these a person doesn't become a drug mule by choice, my guy. The problem is these major companies produce, and then they make it illegal. For instance, in Tennessee, same place in my hometown, Clarksville, it is illegal. In Clarksville, it is illegal to be homeless. So, if you're homeless, you're gonna get a felony trespass. Okay, now think about it this way: if I'm in Tennessee, I now am a felon. I'm stuck in a county where I can't go and do anything. I can't get a job. Now, next thing I know, I'm on drugs. I've lost everything. Next thing you know, you're piddling. You're back in prison. It's a straight to prison system. And these companies, they produce. The pills, the fucking shots, the needles. Hell, in Tennessee, they'll sit here and pass out needles before they'll sit here and pass out rehab free passes. In Tennessee, if I have a heroin addiction and I need to seek help, I have to pay $150,000 to some rehab to help me do that. First off, if I have $150,000 likelihood, I wouldn't have a heroin addiction. So that whole argument of, oh, it's the border. I don't give a fuck how high you make that border. They got tunnels. You bring the ingredients one part at a time and make that shit right here in your back fucking yard. I don't want to fucking hear it, man. I'm tired of their whole argument of, oh, drugs are coming across the border, because you know how many meth labs are made from fucking Ace Hardware parts? Shit, fuck out of here.
Computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went.
So once they come to Saudi Arabia, we're happy to meet you.
Convinced
Right on.
billions of dollars here in the United States, and guess what? Those fabs, they call them, to build these chips. Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions.
I can say this: my brother during the Trump administration got really hooked on drugs, and when I take that situation so seriously, my mom, my brother, my uncle, my actual stepfather, and my other sibling all got hooked on that shit during the pandemic. And under Trump, both of my brothers ended up in prison when it got criminalized, and ultimately got caught with records. And the next thing you know, they're in this long probation system consistently down. My brother lived on Skid Row in LA. My other brother lived on the equivalent in Clarksville. And effectively, Biden, both of them got to seek free rehabilitation, and both of them went through that 90-day program. My older brother Matthew's now getting onto Section 8, hasn't done meth in 9 months. My brother Philip has got part of the street programs, as they call it, in Missouri, in Joplin, Missouri, built by Biden, and effectively he's on a 2-year-long in-house rehabilitation program to help him get away from his fentanyl addiction. So cheers to that.
I'd like to see him take just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions, he couldn't do it. but I took 2 cognitive
Sorry, I have
tests.
to flip the thing and
Physical
change the
exams
content
year.
every other minute,
And, you know,
every few minutes, so I'm not getting hit with copyright. So there was my little rant on his inability to answer that question.
2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match.
Now they're talking
He can't hit
about
the ball
golf,
50
dude.
yards.
Nah, bro.
I think
We
I'm
need to go
in
back
good
to
shape.
talking
I
about
feel
how
that
people are
I'm
dying in the
as
streets
good
from
shape as I
heroin.
was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test, and you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor, and then I took another one, a similar one, and one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 224 pounds.
Ah, 6'5" and 235 pounds. Get him.
200.
Get him.
That's in your, anyway.
Get
Let's take a
him.
look at what he says
Get
he
him.
is. Take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest in that. I got my handicap each when I was vice president.
Fun fact, neither of them can drive because the sitting president and or former presidents are not allowed to drive.
I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
It's a 6 handicap of all.
How is it? 8?
He said he can't play golf. And he said, I'd be happy to, but you have to carry your own bag. What the fuck is happening here?
President Trump, we're going to
Oh, babe, so it derailed effectively
specific concerns
at
that voters have
a
about
minute.
you.
Let's see, that's
Will you pledge tonight
60,
that once all legal
70,
challenges
85,
have been
minute
exhausted,
85,
that
babe.
you will accept the results of this election, regardless of
Talking
who
about
wins,
fucking golf.
and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally
Say it.
unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen.
Question
In
is
addition
about
to the speech
political
I made
violence.
in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks
For
about
real,
that. They
how
talk
we go
about
from talking about
incredibly
all the
small
shit
group of
happening
people
and all the
that went to
deaths
the
with COVID to
Capitol.
talk about fucking
And
golf.
many cases were ushered in by the police, and as Nancy Pelosi said,
He golfed
it's her
half of his term
responsibility.
when
She
literally
said that on Twitter.
900,000
But the
Americans
answer is,
died from
if the
COVID.
election is
He hasn't
fair,
golfed
and I want
one
that more than
fucking day.
anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president.
And then on top of it, he talks about, oh, the taxpayers' money. We paid this motherfucker right here upwards of $19 million to have his Secret Service and all of his fucking shit while he was golfing. Total for all of his publicly active things at his Trumps was $115 million paid by the fucking taxpayer. We've never been great, man.
We're a failing nation right now.
We've been segregated for 200 or 300 years.
His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane.
You made the
They're
Space Force,
insane.
dog. I don't want to
These are
hear
wars
it.
that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III.
Here's the
than
world.
anybody can
Hey,
imagine.
so we went
We
from
are
golfing,
very close to World War III, and
golfing
he's driving
to World
us
War
there.
III. You
And
see how
Kim
quick?
Jong-un, President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him, they don't fear him, they have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
World War III. Let him follow and win and let him say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. A required response. The idea.
No, I'm not a foreigner. I'm from the South. I'm from the state of Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee, to be specifically. And if we're talking about foreigner, my great grandparents were Jewish in Nazi Germany, and they were farmers. Their farm got burnt to the ground when they refused to supply their food to the German army. And then my greatest grandparents had to witness my entire family get massacred by the Nazi army. And then ultimately they were put inside of a camp, and my greatest grandfather dug through a latrine, escaping, got stowed onto a boat and came to America. So I guess that would be foreign, but I would say I'm the third generation. So no, our country has never actually been great, because the truth of it, I grew up in a school called Burt Elementary in Clarksville, Tennessee, that is a 4th and 5th grade school that was literally segregated until like 2002. So, no, we have never been great, ever. And if we are ever going to be great, everyone's going to stop saying, oh, we got to make one party great. It's we the people, not we the party. It's for the people, not for the corporation. And it's not for a single politician either. The person and the president isn't a wielding of power that says I can do whatever I want. If you're the president of our country, you're representing everyone in this country, including the people that came here illegally. Because the truth of it, my greatest grandparents died here illegally, and when my grandparents were born, they were born legally into this nation, and then they joined the military that helped go into like the Gulf Wars, early 2000s wars, and even the Iraqi wars. So we've never been great, man. We've always been dictating towards what country. We're always joining a war, either half-assed, not at all, late, or starting one. And I'm 27, and we've been at war 25 of my 27 years, man.
News conference on it in a week, but we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying
Trump said he wasn't going to
I would
run.
be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace.
Do you hear this?
Again, no
He said he
justice,
wouldn't be running
political
if it wasn't for
opponents.
him running. He said he would rather be someplace else than right here.
Unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers, and
Wow.
it's driven them up to
Wow, you're gonna be in jail soon,
because the
buddy.
people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued.
You could always go back and make it great there. Okay, well, friend, I'll tell you, in Tennessee, we're actually ranked 31 in education. We're a Republican-led state. We're ranked, like 9 in gun violence. We're ranked 6 in illegal immigration. We're ranked, actually, we're ranked like 3 in auto thefts of the nation in crime. And effectively, our murder rate isn't too great either. And that's a Republican-led state. Now, I'm in Colorado. Our crime rate's fairly high, but we're taking away from unnecessity items and putting them into immigration, making sure people have social services, medical. Hell, if you make $60,000 or less in the state of Colorado and you have a medical item, you're more than likely going to get on Medicaid. If you are $17,000 and below, you're going to get on Section 8. If you're $10,000 and below, you're going to get full services. So call it like it is. Like, if you're going to say go back where you came from, I can't, because where I came from as a Jew, it got burnt to the ground by the Nazi army. So how can you sit here and tell me go back to where I came from, because there is nowhere to go back to. And in fact, I've actually inquired to the German government at one point of, hey, what can I do to regain my family's farms? And they couldn't. So it's on commercial break. It's gonna be on for like 2 minutes, but they're about to do their final closeouts, which I think is like 4 minutes each. But no, you can't just say go back to your land and make it great there after just saying we're gonna make America great. Telling people to go back where they came from is not a form of making America great. And if you're gonna sit here and say go back to where you came from, okay, well, if I go back to Middle Tennessee, you know what I'm gonna see? A drug epidemic. I'm gonna see a bunch of abandoned houses. I'm gonna see closed businesses. Hell, there was a business that burnt down in like 2004 when I was a kid that was still burnt down when I went to show my wife my hometown. So if you really want to talk about it, like, Republican states are actually doing a lot worse than Democratic states, because the Colorado, for instance, is a 50-50 state, whereas you got Pueblo, Colorado Springs, Denver being blue, Colorado Springs being red, Pueblo being blue. The region-wise, there's actually a split around the mountains. And you have a district out here, actually, Lone Burbridge district, that is primarily red. If you drive through a lot of these valleys and a lot of those regions, most of these towns are dying. Most of those towns are not doing well. Whereas if you go into the bluer cities like Salida, Colorado, or if you continue going into like the deeper bluer cities, like going out into Fremont County, the little small town blue, they're taking off. They're exploding. And then if you look over towards like the more bluer red like kind of purplish midway towns, like out towards the border, they're doing well too. However, if you look at our northern side, like you go towards outer away from Fort Collins and you're moving into the northeastern region of the state, they're not doing too well. And if you look into the southern counties of Colorado that are primarily red, those businesses are actually hitting a peck as well. And it's not under just because of the presidency. Again, it's because 400,000 businesses across the country closed in a matter of 6 months during COVID. So it doesn't matter if you want to look at Trump or blue. If we're ever going to make America great, sitting here telling people go back if I go back to my hometown, I'm telling you, it being red as shit, I'm gonna go back there wagging a cake, and I might fuck around and join the politics there, because man, I don't like what I see when I go back to my hometown. So again, there's like a minute left in this thing, but that's just my rant on this whole make America great shit, because the areas where they're saying make America great aren't doing great at all. Clarksville's a prison city in the Republican Party that's about to get booted out this election, when it's like a 60% win. Clarksville has been a red city stronghold since like the 90s, and they're about to boot both Republican mayors. They're about to boot both Republican House representatives, and all of those city councils that voted to make it a felony to be homeless in Clarksville, they're all about to get booted out and become Democrats. So we'll see. Tennessee's about to become a swing. They're doing their ends.
Find ourselves in a situation.
Let's see what this guy's got to say.
We have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes in the United States of America. What I did, well, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare to.
They're talking about taxes and the tariff.
For us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years, because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, where it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden.
Nice.
President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer.
Look at
He
this,
said,
throwing
we
punches.
want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything.
He does, though,
All
bro.
he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan.
Not
We
millions,
didn't stop
600,000.
Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again,
He's going at
Ukraine should have
Biden.
never
He's not
happened.
talking about
He talks about all
policy.
this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell.
This is
We
closing
have
statement.
the
He's not talking about
Palestinians,
any
and we have
policy.
everybody
He's
else
talking about
rioting
Biden.
all over the place.
That shows
You
he's
talk
weak.
about Charlottesville.
Trump
This
lost.
is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you
Don't
throughout
respect
the world.
you. You got 34 felonies.
What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military.
That's gonna be
we
a
got
clip,
the
I'm
largest
sure
tax
of it.
cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on.
So he
All
admits
of
to
the
cutting
things
the
that we've done,
regulations, those
nobody's
same
ever-
regulations that
we've
led
never
to an
seen anything
uptick in
like- even
inflation.
From a medical standpoint,
So he just admitted it right there.
Space age
His rambling
materials
just
instead of
admitted
going
it.
to Asia or going to Europe and trying
funny.
to get when you're terminally
Admits that
ill.
he
Now you
cuts
can
the
go,
regulation
you can get
after
something,
saying
you
he didn't
sign a
cut any
document. You've been
regulations.
trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump.
Right.
President Biden. Stay with us because we have
Said they're
full
gonna make it
analysis
great.
of this debate.
Said they're gonna make it great.
Aaron Burnett starts.
He didn't say one thing about his policies or what he's gonna do. He just said he's gonna make it great.
And so the first presidential debate of the 2024 election
Oh, man.
is in the books. As
It's
you
over.
witnessed President Biden opening this debate and continuing with a very shaky voice, a raspy voice that we have.
Oh,
And
man.
apparently he's had a cold for the past several days. But he also
Oh,
had a number of
man, that's
wandering
fucking
answers
funny.
during this debate. He had a
That's
number of
fucking funny.
facts and
We're making
accomplishments
America
that he
great.
wanted to tout,
Oh,
but I think
man.
his voice and sometimes was distracting from that. President Trump offered repeated lies and exaggerations, but then President
I don't know how I
Biden
feel
failed
about
to
this.
fact-check Trump most
I don't know how I feel
of
about
the time.
this.
We've got our entire
I feel like I feel about it, but I don't know how I feel about it.
John Dickerson, I'll start with you.
You know what I mean?
The majority of Americans who don't want this choice, the debate met those expectations. I think you
Oh,
characterized it
man.
correctly.
That debate
what
was
we heard about
raw.
President Biden is
Can we
people
call it a
who,
debate?
said,
I don't know if we can call that a
he was
debate.
underestimated in the
Wait, can we
2020
call that a
campaign. People said he
debate?
looked to his convention
Was it a
speech and
debate?
exceeded
Who won?
expectations.
Who
They said
won?
look to his
Because
State of the Union
at the
address
end, the
and
closing
exceeded
address was for
expectations.
policy,
On the debate stage,
and
he
Biden
came
said
with
exactly what he was going to do.
as a matter of performance.
Let's go.
And as arguing
And then
for
Trump
Biden's
turns
vision
around and
for the
says,
future,
"Oh, he says, he
his
says,
background,
he
you
says,"
mentioned
and
Donald
starts
Trump
throwing
gave
smacks at
fantastical
Trump or
delusional
at
answers
Biden,
on January
and he's
6th,
like,
on Charlottesville,
"Well,
on what he
you
said
know,
about
I'm gonna
the
make
debates
America
after
great
the last
again."
election.
Okay, how, man? Motherfucking how, dude? Like, is it too hard to ask how? Would you let an alligator with no teeth bite you? No, I'd shoot it. Like, why if an alligator's rolling up on me, shoot it, Elizabeth. You know, like, what do you? We all watch the show. Like, if you got an alligator rolling up about to bite your ass, shoot it, bro. I don't see the analogy there. What I do see there is the fact that there was a failed. Kanye starting to say. Alright, so listen, the way I see it, there was some major questions asked here from the very get, and I can recap the whole thing because this wasn't a debate, dude. This was not a debate. There was no debating the entire time. Hang on, let me just. So, Roe v. Wade, police, Portland. Medicaid, Medicare, same things, all together. January 6th, the environment, golfing, COVID, environment, golfing. Yeah, don't forget the gymnastics, bro, straight up, like the back and forth banter. And then they said exactly what I was going to say, the oil, they're like, oh, but oil. So, and then let's see, where did it continue off on? Then we hit the border. I knew he was gonna talk, but my biggest thing, honestly, can I say, this was my biggest issue on this. Listen, promise me this, and tell me if I'm wrong by this. But from a family that was directly affected by drugs, and thankfully I've never done drugs other than some pot my entire life. I don't even drink, but fentanyl, heroin, meth. Pills took my aunt. Heroin took my uncle. Meth took my brother, and then my other two brothers are finally getting clean with the fact that Biden made it less illegal to be a drug addict and more, hey, take and do rehab. And so when they started talking about the drug epidemic, that's the part that caught my biggest attention, because Biden said he's going to continue to enforce the fact that if you do drugs and you are seeking help, it is here. It is there, because my brother did it in Missouri, and my other brother did it in LA. He lived on Skid Row for 9 years. My brother has lived in Skid Row out in LA. You've all seen the damn things. I'm talking a beard longer than Jesus and hair all the way down to his ass. Now he's got a clean cut, doing well, got a job, got onto Section 8, And let's see, message health. Yeah, seriously, like it's just the meth is the drugs epidemic is a very real thing, and then when the fact that Trump couldn't even acknowledge it is a red flare to me, because the fact is, going into this next year, minus every known disease out here, that's the biggest killer. And at this point in time, if he goes back and criminalizes the drugs, what's going to happen is, one, the illegal market is going to go up. The more it's legal, the more it's illegal on that, the more valuable it is. Think about weed. Weed was $400 an ounce. Colorado made that shit legal. Now it's $40 an ounce. Okay. Now my thing is, Colorado does in fact have very heavy crime for drugs, and what they're trying to do to combat that is they had taken and made a huge task force specific to trying to pursue drug help, funded by the federal government. And effectively, under the Republican Party, they're wanting to again criminalize it. And my thing is, what rings my bell about this state is, in Lone Borbert's district has the highest amount of drug use, and they're sitting here acting like it doesn't exist. And so my problem is, the more they sit here and act like it doesn't exist and bounce around the fact, the more it's going to fall apart. So when they couldn't address the drug epidemic, that was a big red flare to me. And then when it went into, I don't know, that part really pissed me off. The fact that they couldn't talk about the drug epidemic was bullshit, because the drug epidemic was such a huge, and then not to mention the tangent on golf. It was like, oh, you couldn't even go golfing, and then it was like, oh, well, I'll go golfing if you can carry your own bag. Fuckers, why are y'all talking about golf when people are dying out here from gun violence, from drugs, from COVID, from diseases, from all types of other ailments, from, you fucking name it, bro. And you're gonna sit here, thank you, you're gonna sit here and say, oh, let's go fucking golf. No, fuck golfing. If you're the president, I say, in my opinion, you should not be allowed to go fucking golfing half of your term during a damn epidemic or a pandemic or any types of things that have the mx inside of them, you know what I mean? Yeah, and they couldn't answer the child care too. The child care was a big thing, because listen, my mom, and mind you, my dad, and they're wild. They had children down south. 5 children in my mom's household. The federal government during the Obama administration ensured that all of us had our bags, had our school supplies, our food, new shoes and shits. And Biden has continued to state that if you are a child in America, you deserve the right to education, period. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you're doing, how it's going. If you are a child in America, you have the right to education, period. And the fact is, when they asked Trump about it, he wanted to backtrack tangent on the whole fucking farmer's market idea of inflation. It's bullshit, bro. You're telling me that you can't answer these questions when you're running for the president. Your whole job as president is to enact law that's been passed to you from Congress, to install policy on domestic orientation. You are supposed to involve yourself in international affairs, but your international affairs are usually done through Congress. So as a sitting president, it is domestic policy. What are you going to do on domestic policy? Are you going to sit on your fucking ass, or are you going to sit here and do some fucking domestic policy? And if you're not about to do some domestic policy, shut the fuck up and go to Senate. I don't care. These dudes are sitting here up here acting like this is a willy nanny when there's some real people like Hakeem Jeffries. This dude's the minor speaker of the I think it's, what is it, House or Senate or Congress, one of the three. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of all these people, but they be speaking volumes. And I'm over here looking at these 2 70-year-olds like, bruh, you both are too old for this job, both of you. But the fact is, Trump at the end straight up said, I don't even want to be running. If you are running for president, how can you sit here and say, I don't want to be running? And if you're going to sit here and say, I'm only running because you're running, and the other one says, well, I'm only running because you're running, sit the fuck down. Sit the fuck down. Period. Both of you are like, well, because Biden said it last year. I'm only running because Trump's running. And Trump said on this one, well, I'm only running because Biden's running. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. So that's where it is. 2024. I think Trump lost that. I think he couldn't hold himself because every time he answered a question, I could see it in his veins that he just wanted to pop off. I bet you he's going to call up a press conference now and say how Biden's destroying America and Biden's going to go take a nap. Oh, yeah. I just don't know if I can call that a debate. I don't know if I can call that a debate. Any thoughts here? I don't know. That's my thoughts. I can't call that a debate. I'd say my highlight of it is him straight up saying, I'm not running. I'm only running because Biden's running. That's a huge red flag right there. Where's Vermin Supreme? What's that? Tinkerbell? Tinkerbell. She's napping. I don't know who that is. Shoe hat guy? I don't know who that is. Here, let's look it up. Who's the shoe hat guy? I think Biden won that. Because at the end he said, Vermin. Oh, that dude. This dude. This fella. This dude for president. 2019-2020 presidential election. That's hilarious. Political independent. So Vermin Supreme, let's go. I mean, they both were wearing their hats on there, in my opinion. That whole thing wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a debate, dude. It wasn't a debate. Because if it was a debate, they should have been able to have a freelance back and forth. Honestly, they should be able to have a free floor back and forth. Let them two fools drill it out. Because at the end, he was sitting there trying to be like, well, you need to do this and you need to do this. Okay, well, I bet you Biden was sitting there being like, okay, watch this. Because what's going to happen if he takes all the shits? Trump, like I said, Trump said he didn't want to be there. He literally said he didn't want to be there. That's hilarious to me that at the end, he was so tired that he didn't want to be there. And his stamina is so low that he couldn't even debate a guy that has the fucking cold. How are you going to run the fucking country if you can't even step up against the dude that has a cold? Like, bruh. For real. Like, the right to education, the right to food, the right to housing, the right to a formal review of your social rights. Like, hell, in Adams County here in Colorado, which is the biggest county in Colorado, if you're an illegal immigrant, you have the right to go to the state house here in Adams County and say, listen, I do not have my appropriate papers. However, I do not want to be deported. And they have a right to sit here and claim asylum. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to assign them to a caseworker. That caseworker sets and walks them through on how to get all their appropriate paperwork, what to file, how to get an international green papers, and how to make sure their background checks are appropriated. Whereas in Tennessee, if you're an illegal immigrant, you get straight up deported. Or if you're in Texas and you jump over the border, you're going to get sent on a bus over to downtown Denver, and they're going to be like, oh, y'all figure it out. And so Denver's like, okay, we actually are trying to figure it out, and then they're going to throw Denver through the mud again. So the fact that they couldn't even discuss actual, like, every time the human rights items, you're right, every time anything associated with any form of actual human right, and then they led it with black vote. I'm sorry, but I mean, it's just to sit here and label an entire community that's already been labeled a fucking how many years in our damn country. It's just, dude, like, he was just like, oh, well. And then, too, he's like, oh, well, I'm a felon. Okay, just because you're a felon doesn't mean, like, bro, like, in my hometown, a felon can't even work at McDonald's, and they can't even vote. And they're a Republican state. And you're telling me that a Republican state is supporting a man with 34 felonies? Like, So I don't know. They just anything like big thing. I'm sorry, I gotta talk about it. The fucking Roe v. Wade shit because my sister's like, bro, like in North Carolina, it's illegal to have an abortion, and well, I think it was, but basically, my sister had to have a medical one because unfortunately, it miscarried, or whatever the terminology is, and effectively, that whole state said no, and she had to go across the border to get help, and it's just that when they sat there and he was like,
"None of the men can have an opinion about a woman's body because
Thank you.
they're not pushing out a fucking watermelon.
thank you, listen,
They don't have to deal with half of the repercussions a woman has to. 95% of the time, a man can just like
yeah, we can say I'm gonna go get some fucking milk. So this is what my wife's got to say. A man has no right to fucking have any voice on it, and that's why I'm like, dude, you two are two white men sitting on a fucking stage talking about women's rights.
neither of them can have an opinion on women's rights because neither of them are women.
And the fact
You
that
can't go outside at night without having to worry about something weird fucking.
and the worst part when he was like, you hired a prostitute, and he was like, I didn't have sex with a prostitute, and he goes, tell that to the judge. Bro, like, sorry, I can go off on these tangents. That whole Biden immediately said if he's reelected, he's going to ensure Roe v. Wade or something of its kind is reinstalled. Women have their rights, and no man has their right to say. And then they were like, oh, well, they're getting abortions at the fucking end. That's not fucking true. Even in my stream, I was like, that's not true. Yeah, for real.
Men that are out here having affairs, wouldn't they much rather pay for the abortion
Yeah,
so their wife doesn't find out?
He was like, I didn't have sex with a porn star. Okay.
You sexually assaulted him instead.
Like, bro, like, okay, you grabbed him by the kitty? Like, what the fuck, man? Like, fuck we doing around here, dude? Like, I guess my thing's, moderating it. But yeah, straight up, like, I don't know, it won't show up, but that's fucking funny. That's fucking funny. That whole thing was fucking funny. And at the end, he had a 2-minute closing statement to speak about what he's going to do to make America great. And all he could say was, well, Biden this and Biden that and Biden this and Biden that. Okay, well, I can sit here and say, well, Bush this and Bush that, but Bush ain't in office. And if in 4 years, if you do get elected Trump, Biden's not going to be in office, man. You are. And so if you're in office, what the hell are you going to do? And at this point in time, he ain't going to do shit. And so Biden sat there and said, this is what I'm going to do. And all Trump could sit there and be like, oh, he's just going to want and want and want and want and want. Like, oh, man. That shit cracks me up, man. That shit cracks me up. So where's the MAGA 2024s at? I'm trying to talk to one of them. I'm trying to see how they feel about this because, truth of the statement, Trump could not debate a man with the cold. You're telling me that you cannot sit here and balls up to a man that has the fucking cold, and you're sitting here saying you're going to make America great again. Okay, tell me what we're making great, man. Tell me what we're doing, because when you sat there and got asked about January 6th, he said, well, I take full responsibility for January 6th. And then when he realized what he said, he went, well, and sat there and fumbled. So you're going to sit here and say you're making America great and say, yeah, I took full responsibility for January 6th, when you just sat here and said for how long you didn't do January 6th and that it was a peaceful protest, and he sat there and was like, yeah, I take full responsibility for January 6th like it's a fucking badge. Nah, fuck you. Fuck you. Excuse my French, YouTube, but if you're going to sit here and say you're making America great, storming the Capitol is not great, man. That peaceful protesting is great. The right to protest is great. Being able to sit here and speak your ideals in a free country with freedom of opinion in this constitutional republic is great. But sitting here telling me that a Democrat, that I'm a fascist, or I'm a Marxist, or I'm a commie, or I'm a all the things that end in the IEs.
What was that?
The wind. But you're gonna sit here and tell me you're making America great. How are you making America great? Because he had 90 minutes to talk about how he is making America great, and he couldn't say "Make America Great" until the last 2 minutes. How you making America great, bud? You're not. You're not. So, I don't know. That's my thought process on this. That whole debate was a shitstorm in a handbasket because they weren't even debating. It was very prerequisite of pointing fingers. And at one point of it, which fucking had me fucking popping on this live, at one point Trump, when he was getting directed by Biden, that was sitting there calling him out on the $7 trillion he added and the deficits he added and the 900,000 COVID deaths he added and the 400,000 businesses that closed, adding to that. And he was like, yeah, inflation's high because I got handed a zero on its back. And then he was out there and he was sitting there looking. He wasn't even looking at the camera. They had to sit there and go whap, whap, whap on the fucking camera screen to sit there and try to get multiple different angles just because Biden sat there and turned and looked straight at this motherfucker and was like, listen, man, you were the worst. And then he sat there and went to say to respect the whole fucking minute thing. He was like, but. And then he came back and he was like, what was that but? By the way, he goes, but you were the worst president in the country. Like, hats off, man. Fucking funny. This whole fucking funny. I'm curious. They should have a. I bet you that little war room afterwards is all just saying about how Biden was cold or tired or old. I'm like, yeah, they're both fucking old, man. They're both fucking old, man, and they should not be up here in office talking about what they're gonna do for this country when, you know, like 2028 is gonna be a big one. Listen, in 2028, I don't think the Republicans are gonna see if Trump wins this. I think we're gonna see a nasty recession. I think we'd see a nasty recession. The reason why I say that because he mishandled the post-Obama, post-recession boom, turned it into an influx and then smashed it on its face. And then 900,000 Americans died from COVID, and we still have not had a day of silence. 1.7 million Americans died from COVID total. 114 million Americans were diagnosed at one point. 400,000 businesses closed, but we're making America great. And we're just going to sit there and be like, oh, well, China this and China that. He's sitting here talking about Biden's economics when all Trump wants to do is blame China for everything. Half of my shit says made in Indonesia. I'm pretty sure this American flag, let's see if it's got a tag on here. Hang on. We're about to see if this American flag of mine is even made in this fucking USA. 1 second. Let's see. Made in Mexico. Look at this. Hang on. Look at this. My American flag shirt. Made in Mexico. So, build a wall, stop commerce by raising tariffs on Canada and on Mexico. Okay, so if you raise tariffs on Canada and on Mexico to punish the cartels, that's not punishing any cartel. That's not punishing drug producers. And they're sitting here saying, oh, well, Mexico and China are producing all of these drugs. I'm like, they're really not. They're being made by American pharmaceutical companies here in the United States. And the pills are being produced and distributed here in the United States. And in fact, Mexico has even stated directly that they are actually getting an influx of drugs and guns from the United States. It's a reverse effect. So, but hey, blame the borders, man. Blame the borders. We can keep blaming the borders. We can keep blaming the borders, and we can keep blaming China all we want. In China, we don't have school shootings. In China, they don't have a bunch of children running around wondering what book they can and can't read. They can sit there and focus on math, science, social studies, arts. They can be children. In America, we expect them to grow up so fucking fast and you want to sit here and say, oh, but well, China is ruining American economies after you sat there and made an entire fucking war economically with China, and then to turn around and Biden ending that and creating a stable relationship minus Taiwan with fucking China, and you're gonna sit here, the next sitting American president. Let's just hypothetical here, guys. Look, we got a few folks listening, so let's hypothetical here. Say Trump wins. Right now, Taiwan, which is an American ally, is at a standstill. They have, and still at this time, as of today, still have a Chinese blockade around them. Economics between them and China are not happening. The only economics that are truly happening there is with America. Now, say Trump becomes in office. He said he's going to immediately tariff our goods and services. So, say he tariffs our goods and services. If our biggest, and mind you, this is an American flag shirt from Mexico, mind you. Say, and I bet you I can pull my American flag out of there and it'll probably be made in China. It's not even American. Nothing I own. Let's see, I bet you this hat that I really like wearing. Watch this. And I'll go back to my hypothetical right here. Made in Bangladesh. Yeah, the whole world is, man. The entire world. It's called global economics. It's global economics. But let's go back to my hypothetical. Say Trump wins here. And I appreciate everyone listening in. Say Trump wins here. He has said that he is going to remove income taxes. Okay? So he removed the income taxes. He said he's going to replace them with a tariff. Right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to fact check it. And it's just because I like numbers. I believe the actual input for tariffs is only like 800 billion, maybe 900 billion. And it's actually probably less because we've went away from tariffs since early 1990s. So it's probably actually like 600 billion. But taxes, however, specifically income taxes, is roughly like 2.7 trillion, maybe 3 on a good year if everyone's doing well. But at 400,000 and below, let's say hypothetical, 250 to 400,000, your average taxing about 17-18%. Mine was last year around 67,000, so I paid a tax rate of around 16%, give or take. I don't know, something like that. Paid my fair share. And the reality to it is, if Trump became president, my goods and services, say I wanted to buy something that was developed in China. However, we put a tariff on that good and service. Say it was a $5 item, and we put an additional tariff on top of it. That $5 item is now becoming an $8 item, and that additional $3 is paying for that tariff. It's just basic. We learned this in elementary, guys. Like, for y'all listening in, we learned this in elementary school. I mean, I come from a red state, and in a red state, they teach economics in the first grade. Bro, like, this is not a new subject here. Tariffs were a leading cause in a lot of our recessionary items from the early 1900s. Because if you think about this, say, just, again, hypothetical here, under Trump's tariffs, if I'm China, and I just got tariffed by a sitting president that just blamed me for 7 million global COVID deaths, that blamed me for 1.7 million American deaths, and again, say I'm the president of China here, and say I'm sitting here looking at the now President Trump, and you're sitting here telling me, China, that now you're going to tariff me on my good and service, and I'm going to look at you, America, and I'm going to say, okay, America, how about I just don't send you that product anymore? What if we get cut off on a lot of our microprocessing units that are used for most of our cars? What if we get cut off on most of our copper that comes from Mexico? What if we get cut off on most of our steel that comes from Canada? What if we get cut off on most of our asphalt that's developed in other countries for the tar? What will happen if these countries get mad at our tariff system and cut us off from those? No one has asked that. Because the truth of the matter is that has happened in our country not once, not twice, 3 different times in our country, leading to major recessions where we had an attachment to something of a tariffed or a sanctioned value that has like the dollar, for instance. When we sanctioned China for their use of weapons that were getting sent to Iranian farms for drones, guess what? They turned around and sanctioned us for wiring that we use for infrastructure, like windmills and shit. It's a back and forth. So now if we're talking about non-militaristic item tariffs, I'm tariffing corn. Say, to make America, and corn, mind you, is $1.2 trillion business. Say I'm tariffing corn to Mexico. Say, hey, Mexico, I'm tariffing my corn to you. Okay, Mexico is just like, well, now my price on that good and service has gone up. Well, I supply you cotton. Okay, well, America, I'm going to raise my tariff cost on cotton. And guess what? Now it's a back and forth. And now say the same shirt made in Mexico out of cotton materials from Mexico. This shirt that was $5 at a market is now $10 at a market. Or these glasses, which fun fact, these were also made in Mexico. So my glasses that were made in Mexico on Mexican materials are now going up. This hat made in Bangladesh on probably more than likely Chinese fabrics has gone up. So again, say I'm the president of China and I just got tariffed on all of my food that is coming from America. And mind you, we send a lot of our food overseas. And as a boy from the South that knows a bunch of farmers, this will hit them heavy. But now if my good and service has gone up, guess what? My cost of production goes up as well. Because now if say I usually made a profit of $5 on my item, but now I'm only making a profit of $3 from a $2 tariff, I need to bring my stuff up to $7 to make it my additional profit of $5. That $2 layover, that doesn't come at a cost of ease. You got a cost of production, you got to lay into extra production values, then you got to raise it on your consumers, then you lose consumers because you just made your $5 item a $7 item, and someone's going to go to the local market and get it for $4. It's a constant back and forth. It's global economics. We learned this in elementary school. When you raise the cost of one good, another good produced by the organization that you raised that cost of is also going to increase. If I'm a business and I have a business relationship with across the street and we have a standard, hey, this is $5, but one day, because it's non-contractual, I raise it to $7, that business across the street is going to be like, hey, man, I've always had this for $5. Why are you raising it for $7? They're going to be like, well, we're just raising our goods on our service because, tariffs. I'm just using it as loosely. But basically, what's going to happen is that business is either going to have a decision of, do I continue services or do I raise the services that I trade with you? If I need your item for $7 and you need my item that is usually $5, I'm actually going to raise my item to $7 as well. It's a back and forth system. Same for gas, same for propane, same for electricity, same for standard business, dude. It's business. And this man says he's a business executive in a fucking global mindset, but he has no idea it's an elementary thing taught to us. We used to sit here and use Skittles. I remember they would put Skittles on our desk and be like, hey, you put 5 Skittles over here and 5 Skittles over here, and they would put an influx of Skittles in the middle. And the influx of Skittles in the middle was supposed to represent the raise on goods and services. So, and your profits. And so what they would do is they would put 3 Skittles in the middle to where it not be even on either side, and basically see what the feeling is of your partner that has either A, 1 Skittle less or many Skittles less based off the end of the example of what we were doing in class at that time. And again, what would happen is one student would end up with a shit ton of Skittles, and the student right next to him that did the exact same thing has no Skittles. And they're like, well, that's not fair. And then that student gets mad. And then basically what happens, they're like, now that feeling is a tariff. It is like, bro, like. So, again, in that speech, he attacked China and Mexico directly. I am wearing 2 products here, my glasses and my shirt that were made in Mexico. If we raise our goods and services on Mexico because of our hatred towards them, all of our goods and services from Mexico are also going to be raised. It's like, it's just, bro, come on. And so what I'm getting at is when he sat here and was like, I had the greatest economy. Our economy started going down when he had a trade war with China, and all of our economics with China started going back and forth, back and forth. So back to my original hypothetical here. If Trump became president for 4 years, he blamed China for all those deaths in COVID. And for 4 years, he sat here and blamed China for the economics in the U.S. and them not doing their fair share. And he blamed China for doing and allowing a military expansionism in their region, which has led to North and South Korean aggression. Why in the fuck? How in the fuck? If he became president and then raised a tariff on Chinese goods, which accounts for 30 to 40% of our American goods, maybe even more, if he's going to raise them goods and services, and at the same time, we're poking the bear with Republican leaders going to Taiwan after the president of China said, don't do that. He said Biden's going to lead us into a war. Fucking China directly said, if you raise our goods and services and you continue to support Taiwan's independence, we're going to go at war by default. And so you're sitting here telling me, while Biden has been able to keep President Xi at a nice handshake level, at a phone-to-phone call, let's meet in person level, whereas President Trump comes in and is like, oh, well, this is China's fault. I'm going to sit here and raise tariffs on China. I'm going to sit here and point the finger at China. That's not smart, man. It's not smart, man. And he's going to lead us into a battle in that region. He's going to lead us to an economic standpoint between Canada and Mexico. He's going to lead American farmers feeling the blunt wrap of all those fucking tariffs. He's going to make small businesses even harder to operate in because he wants to sit here and tighten his little grip on all those. It's just straight up, it's bodacious, dude. You're sitting here telling me you're making America great, and in your whole Make America Great speech, you're blaming President Xi and the president of Mexico for our drug problem? How can you sit here and blame these two countries for our drug problem? That's ridiculous. And then sit here and say, well, that needs to be more further criminalized instead of talking about what actually needs to occur, like rehabilitation programs and outreach programs and structured programs. There are 3 apples and you take away 2. How many apples do you have? Of course, you got 1 fucking apple, man. I mean, I don't know, bro. I'm just, this whole fucking... I can't stand that he's blaming China again. He's blaming China again. Let me reread this. If there are 3 apples and you take away 2, how many do you have? Well, if I'm taking 2, yeah, I guess I'd misread that. I see what you did there. Because I'm taking away 2. You said you take away 2. Smart. I don't know, guys. I'm a little baffled by this because their 2 biggest points they wanted to hit on were the border. And I'm like, okay, you're blaming Biden for the border, but you're not sitting here blaming the Texas governor that put 100 people on a bus, gave them a pocket full of cash with no documentation, shipped them to downtown Denver, and was like, figure it out. And then you're going to get mad at downtown Denver's mayor for turning around and taking portion of the policing budget after the police department gave them permission to take that portion of the budget and then set it into social services to make sure they had their green cards, to make sure they had ways to communicate with back home, and to make sure that they had proper housing because it's 105 degrees out here. America's given the same device as 2013 Charlie Sheen. Straight up, man. Like, dude, where's they're like like our own government needs to go to rehab. Like what the fuck, man? This guy redacted, I don't know your name or whatever, but you've been chilling on my stream this whole time. Appreciate you, but you've seen this debate, bro. This did not make any sense to me at all. They're sitting there, and both of them, no offense, Biden was sick. He was clearly sick. But my thing is, that takes some balls to sit up here in front of the nation that's been calling you sleepy, sick as shit, and turn around and instead of talking to the camera, being like, me talking to the camera, he was sitting there looking at Trump in his face and was like, "You are the worst president in American history." And then talked about the $7 trillion, the 900,000 Americans, and the 400,000 businesses that closed. And the cameras were hitting him with that Kendrick Lamar Not Like Us, being like, whop, 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 just trying to keep track of Biden looking straight at this motherfucker, being like, nah, man. And they were like, they insinuated, like, the camera's over here, and Biden was like, I don't give a shit. And he was sitting there, and then all Trump could do, he couldn't even look at him. He couldn't even look at him. So you're sitting here telling me you're making America great, and you can't even look at the fucking president? Like, I don't give a shit who you are. If you're on the stage with the fucking president and he's talking to you, fucking look at him. I don't know. Trump looked like a coward. So that's kind of my rant on all this shit. I found it funny. I found it very delusioned. And when they went into their whole golf series shits, I found it very insulting. But I'm off. Things really got... Yeah, that fucking golfing, dude. That shit had me... Bro, like, you're talking about golf. Okay, we could talk about golf. He golfed for literally half of his entire term. Costed the American population not 1, not 2 million, $115 million to supply his security details and other asserted assets while he was golfing. And the worst part about it is he golfed at his places, his fucking friends' places, and private locations that got all of that money. And then he wants to sit here and be like, oh, but the American population, nah, fool. The American population could have used that 115 million is what I had to say. Fucking golfing. It was like, oh, you couldn't even golf your own term. And Biden's like, I don't even fucking golf, bro. Like... Oh man, like oh man, it just going from the environment, he couldn't even answer the questions about the environment. And he went into, oh, but the police, and they were like, Mr. Trump, you have 60 seconds, we're talking about the environment. He goes, oh, well, let me talk about Biden first. All Trump could do was talk about Biden. That's it. And my highlight of at the end is when Trump literally said, I don't even want to be here. He was so tired towards the end of that. Trump was like, I don't even want to be here. And they reiterated, they're like, really? And he was like, yeah, I'm only here because I decided that because Biden was running again, I'm going to run again. And I was just like, oh my God, he's lost it, man. He's lost it. He's sitting here saying, I'm making America great again. And then he's going to sit there and fucking say, I don't even want to be on the stage. Like, fuck up out of here, bro. Fuck up out of here. I could rant on this shit all night, man. I could rant on this shit all fucking night. I had someone on here ask to be my guest, but I think they went away. I don't know. I just know watching that debate was very wholesome. It made me realize that I'm glad I voted for Biden. I'm glad I do not support Trump. I feel like all he could do was focus on Biden, but he couldn't even look him in the eye. For a man that's trying to project strength, if I'm trying to project strength to my opponent, last thing I'm doing is looking down. And Trump couldn't even look Biden in the eye. And that says all you need to see about that. And the fact that, as it stood, he said himself, let's see, I show your pain, man. I'm an idiot. Just give the main defense and blank check. Yeah, seriously. I'm preparing for it. I'm betting there's gonna be a speech tomorrow. He's gonna get in front of all those little maggots, and they're all gonna say, "Oh, Sleepy Joe," and Joe Biden's gonna take a nap because that dude is like, I got a country to run. I don't give a shit about this little toddler. It's just, bro, like seeing this man, both of them up there. They both kind of. I mean, Biden was like, dude, like, at one point, he was sitting there just shaking his head, just like, I got this in the bag. I don't even need to be here. Truthfully, I don't even think Biden needed to be there. I don't even think he needed to be there. Truthfully, I don't even think Biden needed to go. He had that shit in the bag. Trump couldn't even fucking do it. He couldn't even look him in the eye. That was fucking funny. It was funny. That's good. It's good times to see them both sitting there on the stage. And then the funnier part, he was sitting there bragging about being a felon. Who brags about being a fucking felon, man? Who brags about being a felon? Right there. He lost so many votes just in that one moment. In that one moment, he lost so many fucking votes. And then when he started saying, oh, President Xi of China, he lost so many fucking votes because his fucking economic war with China was terrorizing. And then he sat there and was like, oh, well, Biden raised your taxes. No, he didn't. He actually cut mine. This was the most I made last year, and my taxes got cut, so somehow, yeah. But hey, they say the election was stolen, right? And then they finally conceded after 3 years. And I'm sitting here looking at when I was a baby, Al Gore was off by like a minimal amount of votes. He probably won the presidency, and he conceded because he was like, it's more affordable to the American population to concede rather sit here and drag it through the mud. And then for the audacity for Trump to sit there and say that America is the worst country in the world right now, he can fuck one. That's all I got to say. Because listen, if we are the worst, hey, listen, we're the best in something, baby. That's all I got to say. Listen, this flag don't lie. If we're the worst, we're the best in something. You know, like, but at the same time, you're not about to sit here and say we're the worst when the biggest thing that I can complain about right now is really just rent. And it's not the president. The president doesn't tell this asshole landlord down here to raise my fucking rent when he can't even fucking sweep a damn hallway. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the grocery bill, hell, fucking, that's 3 companies, Publix, Walmart, and fucking Kroger. All 3 of them, hell, they double dip. You know how much welfare and food stamps? Hell, I'm on food stamps because of this brain injury. I have to go and shop at Walmart because that's all they got over here. So they sit here and be like, oh, well, we don't agree with big corporations and regulations. He said it himself. He cut the regulations. After for 2 years, he sat there and Trump was like, oh, I didn't cut any regulations. Bless you. I didn't cut any regulations on companies. I didn't sit here and do any of that. And then he sat on here on this global fucking stage with 102,000 people watching and said, yeah, I cut those regulations. I cut them. Fuck off. Fuck off. If you're going to sit here and say, I didn't cut anything, and then sit here and go on a global stage and say I cut it, fucking funny. Fucking funny, bro. I reckon I'm about to hop off here, folks. Listen, Biden 2024, Trump definitely lost that. I don't care what anyone says. He couldn't debate or look a man in the eye that had the cold. And on top of it, he said he didn't even want to be there. He said it himself. He took full responsibility of January 6th. He took full responsibility of COVID and its mishandling. He even said it himself. He handed Biden a losing economy. He said it himself. Those were Trump's words, not Biden. I don't know if Trump was just tired. I don't know if Trump just had enough, but he said, I handed you a losing economy and you turned it into what it is today. Biden looked at him and smiled and was like, yeah, you handed me one that was so far in its fucking back. How could you even call it an economy? Oh man, gold. Prime time. That shit was gold. That's all I got to say. Trump definitely lost, but that shit was definitely gold. And if anyone says otherwise, they weren't watching the same debate I was watching. So, all right, fellas. Appreciate y'all watching. Peace.